And so that morning, we investigated all of our options. About 8 or 9 o'clock, we got up, whatever, got going.
Yeah,
About 8 or 9
I did.
o'clock.
I slept in.
Yeah, we slept in a little bit more
And
because the kids weren't there. And then
Becky, my visiting teacher, brought over her.
blood pressure cuff,
Yeah.
digital blood pressure cuff, for like $35 is how much it cost her, and she said she just let us borrow it. And so she took the blood pressure, sure enough, it was still high, and it hadn't
Not
come down.
really high.
No, it's still back at that baseline,
Yeah.
140 over 90, 140 something over 90.
Between the
something.
green and the yellow.
Yeah, and so it's like, well, and then we kept up, we weighed all of our options, then she left. Becky told us a couple stories that kind of got us concerned. Lydia in our ward lost her first one to SIDS, and then she lost the third one, had a successful second one, and lost the third one to high blood pressure, and actually felt sharp pains, so she's headed to the hospital and had to go to actually the Valley Hospital, and they delivered it in the emergency room. And she lost it a couple days later because it hadn't been.
The placenta had peeled away from the uterus.
So, so that kind of freaked us out a little bit. And so we were sitting around just kind of mulling and talking about it, and still just not feeling good about any of the options that we had. And then we talked to Corey, and she said, well, come on in, or
she
come
said,
on in.
have you eaten or drank anything? And we said, yeah. And she goes, oh, then you can't have a C-section until at least after a certain time today. And so after that, so she goes, you're not going to be able to have one until at least after 3 or 6 or something, because you've drunk water and you've eaten.
So that was kind of nice, because Shauna was starving. She hadn't eaten all Wednesday, because they told her, don't eat a thing, don't drink a thing.
And that was another reason I didn't sleep well, is I had those bad gas pains again that night, because I hadn't eaten that whole time I was at the hospital.
So we still had no options, and basically, then another interesting thing was it was about 3 or 4 o'clock, and finally Shauna, I said, look, we got to do something. She's going, yeah, we got to decide. And then Shauna made me call Corey because Shauna felt like such a flake and we were wishy-washy. Basically, we told her, look, we're going to exercise our spiritual options and see if it'll come down naturally tomorrow. And
if it doesn't come down, we'll have a C-section. Well, it didn't come down, and yet we still were now saying,
and we still didn't feel right about it, though. It still didn't seem right. And so Shauna was getting kind of uptight, and so she said, look, Eric, you call. And when I called, Corey said it was about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and she goes, well, you can come in tonight, and Shauna can not eat, and we can deliver the baby by C-section tomorrow morning, do an elective C-section. And that was going to be Friday morning on the 13th. We already have a 13th boy, and was concerned about scarring and emergency room visits and stuff. We had a Friday the 13th boy, because Neil was Tuesday the 13th, and we didn't want a Friday the 13th. And it's kind of funny because I was pretty dead set. We had both decided we're just going to go in and do it. And I said, but I do not want to do it on a Friday, the 13th. And so Shauna and I said, look, Corey, can we do? And I didn't want to tell her why. I was concerned because we're not superstitious. But if there's for example, an Oriental doctor who happens to have superstition, we sell a lot of 777s. In fact, our biggest customers, almost the only customers that we have outside the U.S., are Air France and British Airways and all Oriental, or all the rest. And our launch customers on the 777-300 were all three. The first 3 or 4 customers were all
based on a number that
Oriental.
Was a lucky number.
Yeah, which is a 777. And if you're going to fly and almost die, do it on the 777 because you're going to be super lucky. And of course, we haven't had any crashes yet. And anyway, so if somebody's Oriental and they're going, oh no, I'm going to screw up, it's Friday the 13th. And the reason that I even thought of that was I had read on Tuesday, another interesting coincidence. There had been an article the Tuesday before, the day before we went in on that Wednesday, that said that was in Boeing News or some article that talked about why NASA doesn't launch on the 13th, and talked about the Apollo 13 mission and how they had launched on the Tuesday, like the 11th, and then on the 13th of April 1970, when they launched Apollo 13, it was actually on the 13th that the oxygen tank exploded and caused that huge, almost catastrophic series of events, but they were able to get out of it alive by just severe, amazing blessings and perseverance. So anyway, NASA has not launched the 113th mission. the STS of the shuttle, the 113th, they're going to call it a special mission something else. They're not going to call it the 113th, and they're out, the 13th mission was called like special mission dash 42 instead of the 13th. They just renumbered it, and they will not launch on Friday the 13th. And anyway, they were talking about the 102nd mission shuttle launch, and the question was, should they have it launched on Friday on the 13th? And the answer was, well, if it doesn't launch on Thursday, which it actually did, then they would actually go for it on the Friday the 13th because they basically passed their
So
superstition.
this is about the only thing Eric and I kind of got into it.
Yeah, and
on
Shauna was kind of frustrated because suddenly I was kind of twigging out and weirding out. But it's odd that I had read that article and I had a bias against Friday the 13th, and Corey insisted that no matter what we did, we could not come in on
Today.
Thursday night and have that baby delivered
A
Thursday
C-section.
night.
Oh yeah, and then Eric said, "Oh,
Oh,
how many
yeah.
C-sections
Yeah.
are scheduled tomorrow?" None. I was the only
And,
one.
and I go, how many are scheduled tonight on the second
Or how
shift?
many
She
were
goes,
scheduled
3 or 4.
today? Yeah.
Yeah, and I go, how many were scheduled on the first shift? 3 or 4. They go, and how many are scheduled tomorrow? 0. And I go, how many is average? About 3 or 4 per shift. I'm going, you told me enough right there. I don't need to know anything else. And then I kind of got frustrated. I was thinking, so you think we're suckers, and you're gonna pawn us off in that little piece of junk car? Used car salesman is what I felt like you guys were, and you're gonna pawn, the piece of junk car down to the corner because we're suckers enough to take it. You ain't gonna sell that piece of crap to me. I was frustrated and kind of just defiant at that point. I was mad. I mean, the whole during the whole thing though, I was super humble and just really felt at the mercy of the Lord, and not because I was compelled, but because we were in a situation, very dependent. But at the same time, I was very, very defiant of the system because it seemed like we were just getting railroaded, just frustrating. And so we were sitting around after that, and I said, "Look, Shauna, we're not going in because you're not doing bad. Your blood pressure hasn't gone into the yellow yet, or into the red. If it goes into the red, we'll just go and get it out."
And earlier that day too, I had been prompted, or Eric had, I can't remember which one, to call my naturopath physician again, the one that had originally referred us to UW and the midwives. And I told her that I was about ready to crack down and go in for an elective C-section because of my blood pressure. And she said that was normal. And well, she asked, first what it was, what my pressures were. And she goes, well, that's pretty normal with a lot of women. This at your stage, when you're ready, you're due any day, basically. She goes, why don't you come in and I'll talk with you and I can give you some stuff that will treat the blood pressure and maybe even help the cause of it.
So we, at that point though, we were still kind of sick of just all getting jacked around and jerked this way and that way. Let's just get it over with and get it out of the way. But at the same time, I also knew that.
I realized how close I could have my baby. That was it. We could have our baby.
And Shauna felt kind of weird because she didn't want to be acting like God and forcing the date and the time that it would come out.
Well, it was just that with all the others, at least I went into labor and then had the C-section. At least with this one, it would just be like, okay, do I want it to come Thursday or do I want it to come Friday? Or, I don't know, it just was weird.
So we went, we were sitting there just kind of hemming and hawing, what are we going to do? And Shauna said, look, I'm not going to sit around and just do nothing. We're going to do something. So we got in the car. She insisted we got in the car. We loaded the kids in. But we had to do something because the kids were just over at people's houses and we were just sitting around doing nothing. And we weren't going one way or the other. And Shauna wasn't progressing, wasn't having labor. Nothing was happening. And so she said, well, and even though we had to go all the way over to the homeopathic doctor, she called him and said, look, we're coming in. We'll be in as soon as we can. And so we hopped in the car and got the kids and told them we were going to go to a park, but we had to go see another doctor first. And if we did not like what we heard at the homeopathic doctor's place, then we were going to go directly over to the UW. I was going to drop Shauna off. They were going to get her ready. I was going to drop the kids off at home, come all the way back to the hospital, and we were going to deliver the baby C-section. We did not feel good about that. In fact, it was one of the weirdest feelings driving over there all the way up to North Seattle because Shauna was just extremely quiet and just weird, as if somebody had just died. Somebody extremely close to her had just died. Felt like we were going to the funeral of a very close friend, somebody that we both loved dearly, very close. Anyway, it was just bizarre. I just thought, man, does Shauna feel like something's going to happen? Because she was just acting really bizarre and weird. And I was emotionally and physically drained too at that point. And we went up to the homeopathic doctors, And Shauna was just relaxing and stuff, and of course I drove her there because we wanted to keep her feet up and blood pressure down, and not get stuck in traffic and get all excited. So anyway, we drove there, and then Shauna went in after about 30 minutes. We sat in the lobby and just relaxed. Shauna was just almost half asleep. Then we went and talked to the homeopathic doctor, and she explained what's going on with Shauna's high blood pressure. She just gotten out of med school, or the homeopathic school over here. It's a Catholic school over on the east side of Lake Washington that teaches homeopathic medicine. She just gotten out, graduated a year or less before. And so anyway, she explained all this stuff about high blood pressure. I'm going, you're explaining exactly as I would explain it as an engineer. All the hydraulics and what's going on with the blood vessel versus the surrounding tissue. And I said, basically, I buy everything you're saying. And I said, and I don't necessarily buy what they were saying. And the weird thing was, I asked Corey, I said, is there anything at all that's known out there that you can prescribe to Shauna that will bring her blood pressure down? And she was either A, ignorant, or B, did not know about it, or C, did not want to try it.
Yeah, like they gave me something today. Why didn't they give me that? That prescription they gave me today.
Yeah.
I should have asked.
Could it have harmed the fetus? Anyway, the weird thing was, is she said, nope, there is nothing at all. The only way you can bring that blood pressure down is to deliver that baby, and to get the placenta out. Deliver the placenta, and the blood pressure will come down. Of course, that didn't even happen.
Yeah,
So
because now I'm supposedly a walking time bomb still. No, just teasing. But I went in today and my blood pressure was still high. Well,
2 weeks after the fact. It was just as bizarre. It's dumb. I just couldn't believe it. I was frustrated because we went in there and this lady said, "Oh yeah, you just take this magnesium calcitrate and blah blah blah."
Take some digestive enzymes.
Yeah, and lots of protein. Eat lots of protein.
Force the fluids. Keep the bed rest.
Keep the bed rest. Feed up, and keep stress levels down. And sure enough, it was fine. Shauna's blood work showed up fine when she had that protein and forced the fluids and had bed rest. And then the last key of knowledge that she needed was that magnesium calcitrate. And I walked out of there, and the kids were getting restless, so I took them outside to a park behind the little clinic that we were at, and I had a very strong, calm feeling, one of the stronger manifestations I've ever had regarding something so serious or something so life-changing, potentially life-changing. And it's like, this is the right thing. I had no question in my mind about it. And the kids and I played out in the park for a while, and Shauna spent a lot of time talking to this doctor. She totally set her at ease and tried to even talking to her into home birthing it, which who knows, maybe it would have been no problem.
It would have been safer than what we did, because I would have at least had somebody to
watch you
to
the whole time.
say, oh yeah, the baby's doing well.
Yeah, and so anyway, so we left there and we went and got some burgers or something at Arby's or Wendy's, and then took them and had a nice little picnic up. Anyway, we were gonna have a picnic, but we went to our favorite Discovery Park. And we sat there, and the kids were playing by themselves and running around. They were kind of stressed. They were acting weird because they could tell something weird was going on. Because
and I felt weird.
And there was just a kind of a unspoken tension in the home. Nobody was snippety or mean, and the kids were good, but they were weird. Camille wouldn't touch or show affection, and Neil was very clingy, and very wanted love and assurance, and Camille just wanted nobody to talk to her, nobody to touch her, she didn't want to touch or be touched. It was just kind of weird. But they kind of got that out of their mind. They ran around Discovery Park, and the grass was green, and it's a piece of heaven. It's just truly heaven.
I laid down,
and I thought, is this kind of the last time that we'll spend as a family at our favorite park? Is this the end of Shauna? I mean, that thought went through my mind a couple times, even though I felt good about things. And so, anyway, it was just kind of weird. Shauna was still acting kind of weird, as if, her dream was shattered. It was still Thursday, and that whole morning we hadn't had a good night's rest. We felt bad. She took her magnesium calcitrate, and that night we took her blood pressure, and I think it had come down a little bit. And the homeopathic doctor said to take it on the upper arm, and the other doctor said to take worst case blood pressure readings on the lower arm that you're leaning against. And so, anyway, the averages looked decent. They were actually down quite a bit when you took the average of both arms, and the lower arm looked decent. And I had it plotted on the computer.
And then by the next day, even the worse arm
Yeah,
was okay.
it looked great. In fact, at one point it was down up to baseline.
It was basically in the low 80s, almost in the 70s.
So this magnesium calcitrate stuff was working. And Shauna had gone through labor that night.
Friday night.
All
night almost.
All night, just, what, 8 minutes apart?
10 minutes apart, then 7, and then I finally fell asleep, and they spaced out.
Yeah, and so that was no big deal, because I woke up and we'd both gotten a really good night's rest, and the kids were good for us. And so Friday, we went through the entire day Friday, just kind of chilling and hanging out, and I was home. I'd taken 2 days off from work on vacation, sick leave. And I was home just hanging out with Shauna and taking care of her needs.
Yeah, totally.
And
keeping me fed with high protein stuff.
I figured the most important part of the pregnancy in this one was support before, because we wanted to keep that blood pressure down. I would do anything to keep that down so that she could potentially realize her goal of delivering little Dallin without complications. And so then Friday went pretty uneventful. I don't remember what happened Friday night. I just kept taking blood pressure every couple hours.
Yeah.
Of course, I'd wait for the least tension times, just when Shauna was like waking up from a nap or something. I'd come in and slip the cuff on and take the blood pressure as fast as I could, trying to get the absolute lowest pressure rate I could, because I wanted to, if she saw the blood pressure cuff.
Well, yeah, and sometimes I had contractions too, and so we'd get a little bit higher reading. And so, I mean, we were...
So, yeah, we watched the data, and it still looked decent.
We didn't try to manipulate it that much. Manipulate the data.
But by the same token, we didn't want to take bias data the other way.
Yeah.
So then Saturday morning, Shauna was still having contractions now and again, and I just sat around and did stuff around the house, and I was just kind of nervous, because you're just kind of waiting. It's just that waiting game, and just waiting for her, either her blood pressure to go up, or her to go into labor, and then the big question mark, is it going to be one of these traumatic C-sections with a 2-week recovery time, or is it going to be just a piece of cake? Is it going to be a really difficult one? A friend of mine at work talked about like 72 hours of labor and pushing at the end, and then the baby was getting stressed out. And
what I regret.
finally, after 3 days, all that work, and then we just end up having a C-section anyway. It's like, what a hassle. So after about 3 o'clock, I was just extremely tired. In fact, I was incoherent. I went over to John's house, next door neighbor, and let the kids play. They were still acting kind of weird, and they could tell that things were weird. Mom and Dad just were weird, acting strange and quiet and not ourselves. So it played on them, but they went over and enjoyed Joseph and Matthew, the next door neighbors, and they have a nice backyard. And I was talking to John while he's working on his deck back there. And
while Eric was there, my contractions started again.
I called Shauna. She said, "Oh, everything seems okay." But I've got contractions. They're eight or so minutes apart.
They were like 10, or they
10
weren't
minutes
even.
apart.
They weren't even that far apart. I wasn't even timing them. They were so far apart. They were probably 20.
So I was over there for about 3 hours, and about 6 o'clock we came back home, and Shauna started having them. She goes, "Well, I'm starting to have them kind of regular," and I wasn't concerned. I thought, the baby's gonna come Sunday or Monday.
They weren't 5 minutes apart. They weren't even. Well, finally at I think 8:30, they were 10 minutes.
They were 10 minutes apart, and I thought, well, I better start putting that data in. Who knows? There is kind of a low pressure supposedly coming in next year or two, and maybe this is it. Who knows? But I knew there'd been false alarms all before.
Yeah.
And it always happens at night.
And I thought, well, once they're 5 minutes apart for an hour, then I'll go in.
Because we also knew that if we went in too early, and because she was in early labor or was progressing into labor.
See, I wouldn't fit a time schedule.
Yeah, and they would say, "Oops, well, your blood pressure's starting to climb," and which it would naturally do with the pain of childbirth and the contractions. And they go, "Oh, look, we got to do a C-section." And as soon as we're in there,
or we got to give her mag sulfate, and then that would stop the contractions,
and then that would cause it to be slow, and it wouldn't progress, and then they'd end up just C-section. After we'd gotten this far, gotten her blood pressure down, I want to go in with all the data plotted and everything, showing a nice little trend, showing that blood pressure was dropping down where it's supposed to. Even though I knew they probably wouldn't look at it, they would just look at me as if I had some kind of quack, some bloody freakish engineer who had a death
Some
wish for
controlling,
his wife.
yeah.
Yeah, and his son, and who really didn't care about them. He just cared about data. And, getting this baby out naturally, even though it wasn't even my desire, it was Shauna's.
He
Although,
just didn't want to live with me.
yeah, if listening to you for the next 10 years, oh, what if I had just done this? That honestly was my driving factor. I mean, all I cared about was that I had a safe wife and a safe son, because I didn't have enough life insurance on Shauna at the time to make it worth putting her life in jeopardy, and none on Dallin, so it wasn't worth it to me financially. So at that point, so I knew that I had to have that stuff plotted. So I started getting on the computer and entering all this data in, thinking, and I wasn't in any huge hurry. But
yeah, in the meantime, my contractions had gone to 7 minutes apart, and I thought, oh, this is going to be an all-night thing, just like last night. And the one thing that the naturopathic doctor said was just to get in the tub, and that would either move them closer or it would make them go away. It usually tends to do one or the other, and then you can decide. Well.
So I went and filled the bathtub up, and at that point they were starting to get closer and closer, like 5 minutes apart. And so, anyway,
They hadn't been 5 minutes apart for.
Right. So she got in, and I was madly punching in my data, and I was getting ready to plot it, and she starts calling out numbers, and she was kind of frustrated with me because
I had to yell. These were becoming strong contractions.
Right. And
so usually when you have your partner, your husband, next to you, you just go, and that saves your energy. Well, here he was in the office room, and I'm in the bathtub, and I'm saying, okay, out of the kids are being loud, and I'm having to yell during these hard contractions.
and I was just,
and he wasn't even listening.
I
didn't even hear half of them.
Oh yeah, I was just looking at the
He
numbers.
missed like some.
No,
I remember.
I just didn't respond back because I was looking at the clock on the computer. Of course, there's no second hand on that. And I was just looking at that and just watching this, thinking, okay, these are about every 5 minutes, and then there was like 3, and then it suddenly went to 2.
And 1.5.
And then 1.5, and I'm going, wait. I couldn't tell exactly what it was, but I knew it was between 1 and 2 minutes.
And I was really relaxed. I'll tell you, that tub really does the trick.
And so I was thinking, wait, and I had just got my data, and I printed my first sheet, and I thought, wait, last time we went in, they were 5 minutes apart, and we only had 5 or 10 minutes to get to the hospital. To drive to the hospital, and I thought they're down to like 2 minutes now, and we've got like 40 minutes, and who knows what traffic's like. And I immediately panicked and grabbed my data and started rushing around and calling the Jacobsons and people to try watching the kids. And
well, we already had people like that.
Yeah. So anyway.
So it was about 9:30.
It was about
9:20.
9:20 or so, and then I called the Honiches.
And she times me on the phone. She goes, Shauna, that was only 2 minutes apart.
Yeah, and so they rush over, get here in about 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh, less than
And
that.
by that time, Shauna was out of the tub. She had gotten dressed, and I had gotten fully dressed and got all the bags, and I was scrambling. I mean, just totally unprepared. I think I was in denial. I really think I did not want
and
this to
I was
happen.
like totally withdrawn because these were strong contractions,
Yeah.
and I knew we had to go. I'd never had them this close, this strong before, and I knew we had to go all the way to the hospital. But I was trying to be
Shauna was
calm.
kind of in a trance, yeah.
Yeah, I was almost like in a trance state. It was weird.
And so
I was just not sleepwalking, but I was calmly getting my bag, putting stuff in the car, all in this, and then stopping when there were contractions because I couldn't do anything. They were that strong. I just have to stand.
And so we got a chair really fast, and Brother Honich came over with Sister Honich, and he anointed, and then, I anointed, and then he blessed her. I told him I was just too emotionally tied into this. I just didn't want to bless. And anyway, so he blessed her that she'd be calm, that the baby would be